10-year note Treasury yields closed higher on Friday, but ultimately closed lower on the week. Call last Friday, we closed 10-year note yields at around 322, and today we go out around 312. That's not before we hit 3%, which we did yesterday. And if you take a bit of a step back, prior to FOMC on June 14th, yields settled at 347. So from 347 down to 312, do your math, that's 35 basis points since FOMC. And that includes a 75 basis point rate hike, and it includes Mr. Powell's semi-annual testimony to Congress talking about the Fed's intention to fight inflation and continue to normalize policy. So yields continue to trend lower since FOMC. Now, what does this all mean for volatility? Well, if you check out that CVOL index over at cmegroup.com, you'll notice that since just prior to FOMC on June 14th, volatility has also been moving lower. We see vols and yields moving in tandem together. We see volatility moving lower. It did move lower today, despite the fact that volatility or that yields were slightly higher, but ultimately trending lower, going all the way back to June 14th. Very similar that we've seen from Treasury yields. Lastly, what do we have next week? Well, we've got a couple things on the calendar. We have the ECB Forum, which will feature the central bank leaders from the ECB, the Bank of England, as well as, yes, your Federal Reserve. So it's the third consecutive week we'll hear from Mr. Powell. Recall we heard from him last week at FOMC, this week at the semi-annual testimony to Congress, and next week we'll hear from him as well. So clearly he's getting his face out there. He's talking about what Fed policy may or may not do. Obviously wants to get his message across, and the ECB Forum we will hear from him next. We also get the PCE data, that is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, likely to register higher. We also get some auctions, 2, 5, and 7-year auctions, which while yields have trended lower since FOMC, they are still higher than they were last month when we had the last batch of auctions. So keep an eye out for the ECB Forum, the PCE data, as well as 2, 5, and 7-year auctions next week. So 10-year note Treasury yields, despite moving higher to end the week, up at 312, are lower from last Friday's close and significantly lower from where we were prior to FOMC.